You're listening to Built to Convert, the podcast where growth-minded marketers, founders, and creators come to level up. No hype, no guesswork, just bold insights that drive results. Let's go.
Welcome to Built to Convert, the podcast where strategy, analytics, and real-world leadership insights collide to help growth-focused leaders and operators thrive. I'm your host, Tyler Lane, founder of Session Interactive, and each episode we sit down with founders, CEOs, and executives shaping the future of their industries. Today, we're shifting our lens to the credit union movement, a sector rooted in community, purpose, and sustainable growth, and we could not have a better guide for our conversation today. This episode is brought to you by Session Interactive, performance marketing and strategic growth partners for financial service brands serious about measurable impact. Whether it's SEO that drives quality visibility or paid media that accelerates acquisition or analytics to turn data into decisions, we help credit unions and financial institutions convert audience intent into business outcomes without the guesswork. Learn more at sessioninteractive.com. All right, guys, kicking off our credit union specific series is Tansley Stearns. Tansley and I have known each other for quite some time, which has been awesome. She's the president and CEO of Orsa Credit Union, formerly Community Financial Credit Union, CFCU, leading one of Michigan's most dynamic cooperative financial institutions focused on member-first innovation and community impact, with over 25 years of transformative leadership across credit unions nationwide and a track record for scaling relevance, culture, and purpose-led growth. Tansley brings both strategic rigor and empathetic leadership to the challenges facing credit unions today. She's here to unpack how relevance becomes a competitive advantage, how culture fuels future-ready leadership, and how innovation with purpose works inside a highly regulated ecosystem. Mouthful there, but it's important. We got to get it all out because it's some really cool stuff you're working on. Tansley, great to see you.
So good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was really important that we get you on. And a little history here. We worked with you at Canvas Credit Union here in Colorado, and then you made the switch to CFCU, now Orsa, and we're really happy to join you along the way.
Absolutely. You've helped us to make sure people know how to find us, and that matters deeply in this world.
we were just quickly talking about just the rebrand, and shout out to you guys on that. We'll talk about that in a little bit here. Let's go right into it today and make sure we can really get the core insights from you. So let's talk about that concept around relevance being a competitive advantage. I think define in practical terms for credit unions, what does being relevant actually look like in your member experience and your business strategy as a whole?
When I talk about relevance, I like to talk about the strategies that you will hear leaders within our movement discussing. Talk about brand, talk about experience, talk about the digital approach. And frequently, if you talk to a senior leader about what they're doing in a year or over the next 3 years, they'll say, okay, well, this year's about digital, and next year's about brand, and the following year's about experience. And our perspective is that all three matter, because when you get somebody's attention, if you've got an exceptional brand and people are interested in you, and then their digital experience of the organization is like it's 1998 and they're wondering why you don't care about that, you might not get another shot. Or if you focus really heavily on the in-person or interactive experience in whatever mechanism that may come, and then the brand is very dated, again, people will have questions. All three of those strategies really have to come together. And, we've done a terrible job as an industry of telling our story. I recently was heading out to talk about a QSO we stood up to ensure that we are relevant and that people know about credit unions. And I hopped in the Uber, and the Uber driver asked me what I was doing there. And I said I was going to speak at a credit union conference. And he asked me what? And I said a credit union conference. And he asked, what's a credit union? And that refrain is so common. And honestly, I'm tired of us laughing about it, because while it is a very common story, it is preventing us from being relevant. And if people don't know who we are and the impact that we can make, we aren't going to be around we're celebrating our 75th year this year, the next 75 years.
Where do you think, so you mentioned, a variety of things there in terms of kind of three main focus areas. and wanting to focus all of them at the same time.
Yeah.
What do you say to a team, maybe yourselves in particular too? It's like that can be overwhelming to do. And you're like, hey, we know we need to get it done. People are digesting. People need to see what rates are. They need to have a great customer experience. They need to have a great accessibility and user experience when they're going through the site. It's a lot, right? Where do you think most credit unions fall short when they want to be relevant in this day and age?
Two things can be true at once. We can be very impatient with progress, and we can improve our operational tempo. We've been really patient with ourselves. My alma mater, the University of Michigan, does a study every year about the perspective of consumers around customer experience because they're looking beyond credit unions. And for years and years and years, credit unions did way better than banks. And for the last several years, we have not. And I think that's largely because of these digital devices. My daughter, Mackenzie, who's 15, doesn't think about experience as just being about how we interact personally. She thinks about how simple it is and how digital it is and how quick it was. And we have to be committed to having a faster operational tempo. And as we do, we can be impatient with progress and still be cadenced in our approach. If we think about, we've now got a 10-year strategy, we know in 10 years what that vision looks like, where we want to be. And we know we can't do all of it in year one. And I think for the organization to be able to see, this is what we want to get to, and here's how we're going to be measured in that, and here are the milestones along the way. And quite frankly, being very transparent with members. One of the things I love about a financial cooperative is that our members own us. I think it's great to be able to say to members, we know we need to get better. Here's what you can expect this year. And then go back and say, here's what we did, and here's what we learned, and here's what you said about it, and here's what you can expect next year. People want to be part of that progress, particularly for an institution that is an institution they own.
Exactly. Well, unpack some of those KPIs and like how are you guys are measuring relevance specifically? It sounds like, being transparent, obviously, to those constituents, and making sure that's being measured to a certain extent. Is that a way that you're reporting out continuously and saying, here's kind of what we benchmarked, here's kind of the collective KPIs that we're adhering to? What would be some of those that you're looking into that are important to disseminate to the broader audience?
Yeah, it's really fun to do this work because our board has thought about what they describe as our ends, which other folks might describe as vision. And then we come back and say, okay, well, how are we going to do that? And how will we prove that we did? And those longer term measures are very bold and aspirational. They are things like how many of our members owned a home for the first time or saved for the first time. And ultimately, what impact did we make on young people in Michigan not leaving the state? One of the challenges we face in the great state of Michigan is that people have really great choices for university, and then they often go elsewhere to live their lives. And we love this state, and we believe that if we, as a financial cooperative, have the tools and mechanism for people to have the life they wish to have, they're more likely to stay. So that's very aspirational. You can't compare that to the bank down the street because that's not the way they're thinking about it. And in a year's time, we have some very practical measures. We're looking at membership growth and core deposit growth and our capital. And those things matter because we have to do well to do good. And I don't think that you can forget about either. I think it's very easy to skate to the things that are the measures that all of us are used to. What's great for our organization as it relates to culture is that when our board defined our ends and we started to have this, what we call executive scorecard that showcases some of these bolder measures, our team is really inspired. They want to be part of changing the world in that way. And so understanding what do we have to do this year and what are those practical things that are going to be gates to help us get to those long-term aims couples really well.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. That's a good segue into just culture as a whole. I've gotten firsthand, working with some of your direct reports over the years, which has been really fun. And, understanding how passionate they are and how focused you have been around culture, which is a buzzword, right? Let's be clear. It's difficult. How's the culture? It's like, it's a happy hour? No, right? It's fun. But is it really, what really drives that and your steadfast focus to maintain? I mean, you think about the correlation with employee retention and customer retention and all sorts of other things that are really important there. What are some of the core items that you look for and want to maintain within that strategy to support that word culture? And how has that evolved since you've been at CFCU and now Orsa?
Yeah. We really believe that our values ground all of that. And for us, that begins with belonging. We are passionate about the fact that when people come to work every day, we would like it to be a place where they can bring their whole selves. The typical experience for a lot of people is that whether they're working remotely or not, that there's a hat they put on when they log in or walk into an office and a hat that they take off when they log off or walk out of the office. And that the experiences that we have, the perspectives, the unique approaches make this organization vibrant. And we want people to feel like themselves. I can tell you for much of my career, really outside of the last maybe 7 years, I was really putting on a costume of what I believed an executive looked like, acted like, the words I would use. I have a very loud laugh and I muted that for most of my career. And in the moments where I started to have enough bravery to show up more authentically as me, and I don't mean acting ridiculously, I do mean within a professional setting, showing up as who I am, I started to build more trust with people because a lot of what I was doing as I was really polishing all of my edges was making people believe I wasn't very human. And as leaders, people pay very close attention to how we show up, and it then invites them to show up in a certain way. And so that authenticity and commitment to belonging is critical to who we are. And then I also think it is about inspiration. I know, again, for a lot of people, when I talk about impossible dreams, there are eyes being rolled. And what I say to our team is, I know that I am the lid. And our board is our lid. And however bold and audacious and vibrant our dreams are and our words are, everyone else will be within those boundaries. And we need those boundaries to be really, really exciting. And we want people to be in this organization because they do believe they can make a difference in the world, because we know that we can. And so values really matter. Inspiration really matters. And I also think excellence matters. We do, as we talked about, have measures of success. They're different than what other people think about. And we want to race toward those. And we know that when we have success, that will allow us to create more impact for human beings' lives. So I think all of those things come together. And then for us, as both the leadership team and board, our commitment to one another translates directly to the commitment to members. Because if we have a really vibrant organization, the experience our members have is going to be equally vibrant.
Yeah, should transcend ideally, right, into that. Interesting times with the job market. It's all over the place. Individuals that are in financial services and looking perhaps to seeking a role in financial services, regardless if it's a bank or fintech or a credit union. What are you guys doing? Because what you're saying on the culture, and I can witness it firsthand, right? I can attest to it and know you're really committed to that. But when you're first trying to attract individuals to join you and the others at the credit union, what are those core items that you look for or want to maintain? Because saying it is one thing. I know it's true over there, 100%. But during an interview process, that's difficult in certain cases. You can articulate it, but you need time. People need to go through it. So what are the other items that you use to kind of attract people to buy into the mission and focus on delivering results for you?
I think it's as much about saying who we aren't and what will be hard about it as saying who we are. We recently were in the process of hiring a new chief financial officer, and our recruiter said to me, Tansley, I think you're scaring some of the candidates. not everybody wants to work for you. And I said, that's great. That is great because the operational tempo here is going to be fast. We're not ever going to be a credit union that is completely focused on operating expenses in a way that is simply just tightening our belts all the time, because I think cutting your way to success is not the right path for us. It is for other people. And that's just not who we are. We want to be thinking about what are those revenue drivers. We want to be thinking about, as this model allows us to create impact, what are the different ways that we will think about revenue and expense reduction in smart ways. So I think it is about being really clear with people about what it's like to work here. We do run really fast, and we do that because we believe that change is coming quickly and that this model is the very best one for human beings. And we believe people need us. And then I also think it's about curiosity, because truly in this time when people are so worried about AI and maybe what it means to have artificial intelligence doing jobs that we used to think were going to be jobs for life, I'm less concerned about that, because I think it is about curiosity. Even if you look at the trajectory of my career, when I first started in credit unions and was responsible for marketing, there was no social media. The Facebook didn't exist. And over time, I had to learn that my competencies around social had to change and grow. And if within the organization, you are most driven by the purpose and how you can lift up something new and learn it and apply it to that purpose, there will be a home for you.
Yeah, it's really well said. I love when you mentioned the CFO and the hiring piece. It reminds me loosely of like a newsletter, right?
Yeah,
you want to opt people in.
Yeah.
When people unsubscribe, great.
It's great.
Yes. That's excellent. You're not going to digest it. You're not a fit.
Yeah.
So I think like me relating it to that CFO is just like, this is who we are. This is who we're not.
Yeah.
Right. I think that is huge within that transparency through the hiring decision.
Yeah.
Talk about culture a little bit in terms of the atmosphere and the individuals, moving from Colorado. Did you notice, was there a dramatic shift in how consumers do things? It was how your team members do things from Colorado. I think of, both very passionate areas and very just amazing people. A lot of transplants here in Colorado, probably maybe less so, more natives in Michigan area, if that means anything. But I'm curious, like because I know you native, from Michigan, I believe, and wanted to, go back to, which was really compelling to you to be close to friends and family as well. Again, talk to me maybe quickly. I'm just curious myself in terms of that change that you witnessed from one area of the country to another.
Yeah. The gift of my career is that because I had this dream pretty early on of becoming a CEO, and I started in marketing, all of my mentors were saying, you better take a whole bunch of other jobs and wear a lot of different hats, because no board is going to hire a marketer to run a credit union. And so I did that. I followed that advice. And so I've lived in Connecticut and New York and Madison, Wisconsin and Colorado, and now back to Michigan. And through that journey, you really see that across our country, first of all, amazing human beings all the way across this incredible country. And the perspective about credit unions is so different. When I moved from Michigan to Connecticut, was dramatic how almost everybody in Michigan understands the top of the funnel. When you say you're going to a credit union conference in an Uber here in Michigan, you're generally not going to get the question that I described earlier. People understand who credit unions are. When I got to Connecticut, that was not true. And so different areas of our country have a different understanding of the top of the funnel. So coming back to Michigan, that's good news, because generally you aren't explaining what is cooperative finance. And it's a little different because there is really strong competition. There are a lot of credit unions here and what we tend not to do in credit unions is steal market share from banks. We tend to steal it from one another. So that's interesting. I think to your point about Colorado, having lived in many places across the country, what was so amazing about Colorado outside of the mountains and how beautiful it is and how much sun there is is that the people there, because there are so many transplants, are so welcoming and kind. And that wasn't our experience in other places that we moved. And so that part was remarkable. And of course, this was like coming home. You know, my parents live 90 minutes from us. My in-laws are about 15 minutes from us. My husband and I both went to the University of Michigan, go Blue, and Ann Arbor's 15 minutes from us. That is all very comforting. And, you know, I'm one of those people that if I drive or run to a place, I can generally drive and run back. So I know most of these roads and how to get places. And that's really amazing. And I think in terms of the credit union, one of the things that was really unique about coming to what is now Orsa is that my predecessor, well before COVID, was a big believer in remote work. And many of the people that work here have worked remotely for a very long time. That's really positive. And I think the future of work is going to be less about, is it all remote or all in person? It's going to be this new experience we create for those of us that wish to do so. And it's been both good and bad, right? It's awesome that people have a lot of flexibility. And what I'll tell you is that when I talk to our colleagues and I ask them about what they love about working here, they'll start with that. I love the flexibility. I love getting my kid off the bus. And then immediately thereafter, they'll say, and I'm kind of lonely. And I miss when we used to have potlucks. And
Sure.
I think one of the things that we're really dreaming about is how do we create that future of work in a way that honors flexibility and also ensures that human beings have one another, because we are very social creatures. Even those that are introverts need interaction with one another.
Yeah. And that's important. I mean, I think we've not to talk about ourselves, but it just like we relate in the sense we've never had an office. So it's entirely remote. Yeah. And now you're dealing, Tansley, with people that you're hiring entry level or even people with a couple of years experience who've never been in an office, which is mind boggling to think that. Mm-hmm. And it is, I will say just shaking hand, you know, that mentality. I think you and I are that same, it's just so important to establish that. Yeah. Yes, the convenience is there. Yes, that is focus, which is great. But at the end of the day, there is some level of like, we do need some human interaction. Yes. Rapport, obviously the culture component, massive, and so many other things is really important there. So, it's an interesting one. Well, let's transition here into innovation. I think, you know, you brought up the trending acronym AI, and I want to unpack that a little bit. But I think, you know, innovation within financial services in particular, for credit unions and balancing compliance and risk. Mm-hmm. How do you decide where to innovate or where to streamline things, existing processes, or just when to say no? Mm-hmm. I think it is so, despite what your LinkedIn feed says, mine's probably very different than yours in terms of a lot of marketing components. It's like, no, we're not trying to fire our team, right? No. This agent, you think it could take over. No, the human element is still very strong. Yes. Talk to me about that and kind of what you're seeing around kind of innovation as a whole.
Yeah. Innovation is critical to us. And in terms of all the decision-making you asked about, it's grounded in human need. The way that we stop chasing bright, shiny objects is understand the biggest problems that our members and human beings face, dive into that and understand it more fully, and then marry that with our subject matter expertise to create a new solution that solves that problem. And then share that back and be able to say, hey, you told us that this was really painful for you. Here's the way we're solving it. And hopefully you'll tell us next time something's really painful so we can solve that next thing. And that to me is that cycle that works exceptionally well. That doesn't mean we build everything. There's partnerships that bring some of that innovation to life. And you know, your question about AI, we've got something we're going to launch in the next 30 days that we built in less than 60. And where it came from was we're, as a leadership team, as a board, and myself as the president and CEO, are really invested in using AI. We've got a coach that's working with us. I'm spending 2 hours a month. My team is spending 2 hours a month. It's probably not even enough. And it's really just about, how do we write queries? What are the business problems we're facing? How might we use AI to solve them? It's so novel and changing so fast that I believe the best way to make sure it's integrated into our culture is that we're using it. Our team hears that and they're using it. And then we had this idea and we were able to build something that, 2 years ago, we would have spent another 2 years building. And that's the power of it. And to your point, it is in no way about how we reduce the team here. There's plenty to be done. What I truly believe will happen is that it allows us to invest more in our team's knowledge, have different roles that we might never have thought about, and have people growing through the organization, which, again, coming back to culture, is a real gift. Because if somebody's really excited about what we're doing, shares our values, believes in the impact we can create, and is growing with us, that helps the culture thrive.
So true. I'm glad you're investing. And I think there's just a level of curiosity that you just need to, hey, like, are you passionate about something here? Or do you think this is going to make your life easier? And in turn will make our members' lives easier, perhaps. I think also maintaining the fixation around kind of mundane or remedial tasks or repetitive tasks, like great use case for AI.
Agreed.
Are we looking to, again, we're not looking to replace, but individuals with that strategic mind and, hopefully an agent or an LLM of some sort can help expand and maybe get there faster and ideate together. So glad you're really taking that to heart. Well, I guess, in a highly regulated industry, innovation doesn't always pay off. I think that's a big piece. And, some of these are exploratory projects. How do you de-risk certain things? I think making sure, for example, it's difficult, right? When a lot of people are putting things into these large language models that they probably shouldn't. It's the wild, wild west still. We are in early innings, to go to a baseball analogy. We really are still. How is that? It's very difficult to regulate, right? How do you maintain that and de-risk certain things, again, for those exploratory related projects, and make sure the team is aware that, hey, there are inherent risks here?
It's really about, I think, both sides, right? Because there's also risk in staying so safe that you don't do any exploration. Sure. And so what we've worked hard to do is, one, make sure that we're surrounding ourselves with experts that we believe we can trust, understanding where those risks are. Where are there places where we really can have some trust and there's not member information? What are those places that we can test early and often? And then what are the bigger pain points in the organization? One of the things that we've been able to build in the last several months solves one of the biggest pain points for the majority of our team, which is around our intranet, and for most credit unions, this is a super big pain point. Is the knowledge accurate? Is it outdated? Can I trust it? And AI is a super mechanism for that. And we've been able to partner with a firm to be able to have a model that is within boundaries that we can trust. Our team feels really sound about that from a compliance and regulatory standpoint. And so now we can demonstrate that to the team, this is solving one of your biggest problems. This is how we're going to test that. It is completely safe. These are the things that I think, as we take those steps forward, we can gain our footing, understand, okay, what does this risk look like? Because the truth is, yes, it's a very highly regulated environment. We want to always be compliant with those regulations. And we are in the business every single day of managing risk and navigating that risk. And the way that we do that intelligently and with our members' needs at the heart of everything that we do keeps us with a really sound compass.
Love hearing that. Relating to AI and kind of where things are at in terms of innovation, the brand, right? We talked about it, and the rebrand. It's really exciting. I think you and I, again, we're catching up on the need to focus in on a unique name, right?
Yes.
Whereas, CFCU and certain things were maybe a little bit generalized and maybe could be confusing to some. It's amazing how brand is getting kind of I wouldn't say it was kind of behind the scenes, but it was always very important. But with the advent of these LLMs and how people are searching and how people are interacting with them, brand becomes so important. From the mentions that you're getting online to your name specifically. So it's really an essential component there, and especially to cut out confusion of generalized names and other things like that, community outreach, et cetera. Talk to us about kind of the selection of the name and how you got to it, and why you're excited about it moving forward.
We went through a rebrand. It's been a bit over 2 years now. And so we updated the color and the language, and Daisy, which is how we talk about our bear, which puts back to Daisy Air Rifle, which is where we began as a credit union. And that was working really well. We have people that now say, "Oh, aren't you the credit union with the bear?" So you can start to see that resonate. And we were continuing to have real business challenges with Community Financial. There's another credit union in our area that has the same acronym, CFCU. There are lots of credit unions that begin with community, fill in the blank. And, over the course of 3.5 years, I've had a lot of discussions with reporters, and it's very unusual that our name is used correctly. And that is truly a problem. We actually had a leadership team member who, when they onboarded, were excited, told their family about it. And this person's mom joined a different credit union.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
And so our board came to us after we had explored this, went down the rebrand path without changing the name. And they said just a little over a year ago, it seems like this really is getting in our way. And our team went through an exercise of really seeking to understand from the board and leadership team's perspective, what did we want the brand to represent? What did we not want it to look or sound like? And after we understood that, came back with some choices, got some feedback, and then it's about legal. This is just as much a legal exercise as a creative one, because for us, having a trademarked, ownable name was critical because we don't want any more market confusion. And people have been doing this a long time. There's not a lot that's ownable.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm so proud because our team did all this work internally. Our internal creative team is just amazing. And this is a once in a lifetime project to be able to go through that naming exercise and to come out with all the creative outputs and be able to share it now today as we launch.
Big moves over the last year plus. I mean, the new website, we were really excited about that, and the firm that you used, and all the added relevance and the modernization of that experience, which has been awesome. And now, obviously, with the rebrand, some exciting times. And again, I think as an SEO professional, it's like, okay, we always want the brand to have this unique name that is no one else knows about. There's nothing related to it in terms of other brands or market confusion. So shout out to you guys for getting that one and really honing in on that. I love to just you guys with the bear, like just that, even that, that relation is really important to as people are searching and just understanding who you are. Let's switch gears. Something I love to kind of wrap these conversations up with is just kind of more theoretical or hypothetical situations. For example, if, let's say you had a wand, right? And you wanted to wave it around kind of structural barrier in terms of the credit unions right now. And it can be culture, it could be technology, regulation, talent, et cetera. If you could change something tomorrow within your industry, what would it be and why?
It would be that we had been telling our story well for the last 100 years. We have so much work to do. And I'm really proud. I mentioned earlier that we stood up a QSO. It's called Backbone, which is intended to share the story of credit unions through earned media. We now have almost 30 organizations that have come together through a coalition to do that, and really excited. And if we had been doing that for so many years, I can just imagine how much further we would get. And the optimist in me would say it's great that we are investing in it now. And if we continue to come together on it, it's one of the things that is uniquely collaborative within credit unions, and this opportunity to align, to let go of anything that we don't see just exactly the same, and say human beings across this country need credit unions, and we're going to make sure that they know that they've got a partner in their financial future. It's thrilling to think about what would have happened if we'd done that earlier, and I'm excited about doing it now.
Yeah, that's huge. What you've been able to do. It did that insight or that the QSO that you started. Where did that come from? Was that just like always in the back of your mind? Was that someone internally or a group? Or talk to us about that, of how that got started.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, what we noticed is that there was some pretty negative earned media coming out pretty regularly about 2 Novembers ago, and every 4 to 6 weeks. And unfortunately, there's this vacuum, and we haven't told our story. And so it, as you know, with search, it becomes really easy for that to fill in fast. And that was terribly concerning to me and some of my peers. We had an opportunity to come together. America's Credit Unions has an event where credit union CEOs come together and learn. And I was on a panel with Linda Arman from Four Leaf, used to be Beth Page. And she and I were sharing this idea. We pretty quickly had some people that were interested. About 11 of us stood together at first. And as I mentioned, there's now almost 30 of us.
Wow.
We have a firm that's representing us. And that was really important. One of the things that we talk about as a coalition is that this is about greater good. It's not about wordsmithing, and it's not about who gets coverage. We've got credit unions from New York to Arizona to Michigan to Alaska.
Sure.
It's great news if any of us are getting coverage. And as we come together, we have an opportunity to have a deeper and richer story. The example that I'll give you, there was an ice storm here last year. It was a terrible situation in our northern region. Our organization stood into that, really walked with that community. We might get some local coverage. Very unusual that I would get something nationally. Well, in California, 2 members of the coalition, Redwood and Schools First, had done some really powerful work during the fires in California. Four Leaf had done some really amazing things during a hurricane. Others, and you can start to see, okay, this is what credit unions do during really dark times to support their communities. That's something that a reporter will want to shout from the rooftops. And that's the power of the coalition coming together.
Got it. Yeah. I love that. And it just, we haven't really unpacked the core differentiators, but that's a massive one in particular. And that's like, how can a member not gravitate towards something like, or a prospective member? Yeah. That's amazing. Wrapping up here, what would be your message to other credit union CEOs, Tansley, about staying indispensable to members as we progress into 2026? Always love to get your quotes here and insight.
My challenge to all of us is to continue to use listening as our superpower. I think one of the things that we have to really guard against is that many of us within credit unions have devoted our careers to this industry. The way that we navigate our financial lives is very different than the average human. For the average human being, they don't want to talk about finances. There might be a lot of shame attached to it. Sure. They may never have talked about it with their parents. They may not understand some of the things that we just do every day because it's been part of our careers. And that's why that listening matters, because when we listen, we can really understand what's facing people that's so hard that they don't have anyone else that's solving those problems. And if we solve those problems in unique ways, to your point, we are indispensable.
There you go. Yeah, that's huge. Tansley, it's amazing to chat with you, and always really appreciate your time. You're an incredibly generous individual, and have helped us as an agency and grow, and always appreciate your commitment to the partnership and everything there. How can people hear and interact with you more directly? I know you're incredibly active on LinkedIn, but you've got some other things going on too. Tell us where people can engage.
Yeah, LinkedIn is probably the best way to find me, Great. Tansley Stearns. Of course, you can go see Orsa's new website. We'd love you to check it out.
Love it. A little plug there. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate your time. So we're going through this credit union specific series where we're going to be highlighting a lot of other executives such as yourself, and then bringing in the insights together and seeing what we can come up with, and hopefully it's impactful on everything that we hear and what we can disseminate to the greater group. Thanks so much. It was great to see you. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Tyler.
Of course.
Thanks for listening to Built to Convert. If you're serious about growth, don't just listen. Subscribe, leave a review, and follow us for new episodes that drop straight into your feed. Until next time, keep building.